Okay, let's talk about it. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. You know what? I don't know if it helps to be a Packers fan today. Grossi, and today we are going to be talking about the absolute meltdown against the Chicago Bears as the Packers lose in overtime 22-16. And yeah, there are very few silver linings that are coming out of this game because that was brutal to watch. And before we get into the game, I want to apologize as this is obviously coming out late. Last night, we had our 5th annual December charity stream in which we raised over $181,000 for Street Angels Milwaukee Outreach, one of the smallest charities we've ever raised money for. That brings us to $1.3 million raised in 2025, which is absolutely incredible. $2.4 million raised since 2021. And I just wanted to thank you so much because without you, this is not possible. And this community just shows up time and time again to do a whole lot of chaotic good. So thank you so much. In addition, we also hit 950,000 subscribers yesterday. We now are at 951K, which means we are 49,000 subscribers away from 1 million. It is a free show here. There are no sponsors whatsoever. Feel free to subscribe. It is free to do so, as now we are going to race and try to get to 1 million before the Super Bowl. Thank you so much for the support. And that was one silver lining from last night. Starting off, heading into this week, of course, the Packers have dealt with a litany of injuries. And there are definitely some injuries on the other side as Chicago is missing Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. Odunze also missed the last meeting against the Packers. But the Packers, of course, losing Micah Parsons this past Sunday. And then on top of that, dealing with all of the injuries coming into a short week in which they had no Zach Tom and no Evan Williams in this ball game. However, Josh Jacobs did wind up playing. We'll talk about Josh Jacobs as he also got banged up during this game. On top of that, Christian Watson was good to go. He got banged up too, but thankfully he wound up returning. But of course, because the injury gods are not done with us just yet, in the second quarter, Jordan Love suffered a concussion and was ruled out of this game. We'll see if he's going to be able to play in the next 6 days as the Packers, they do not have an extra day of rest because they are going to be playing prime time on Saturday night once again as they take on the Baltimore Ravens. And so hopefully Jordan Love is okay. And in addition, John Fitzpatrick got carted off the field. He tried to walk off the field on his own power and he has an Achilles injury, which did not look good. So hopefully fast recoveries to everybody who's got injured. And now let's talk about this absolutely abysmal football game. I don't even know where to begin. We could start looking at the offense and talk about some of the good, because some of the good has to do with Malik Willis. Jordan Love, before he got injured, went 8 for 13 and 77 yards, but Malik Willis came in and he had a really damn good game. And this has been one of the great things about finally finding a backup quarterback. Malik Willis has come in, whether it was last year, able to win the Packers a bunch of games while Jordan Love was out after he got injured in week 1 against Philadelphia. And he was able to step in, and it looks like he didn't miss a beat. He went 9 for 11, 121 yards, and 1 touchdown through the air. Also rushed 10 times for 44 yards. And I know there's plenty of Packers fans who have talked about this, but it does look like LaFleur at least is able to open up the playbook on the ground when Malik Willis is in, because you have to account for his mobility. He was able to get a big-time first down as he was able to scramble out to the left really early on in this game. And on top of that, he was able to navigate the pocket and avoid a bunch of sacks, even though ultimately he did get sacked 2 times. So a huge shout out to Malik Willis because he did everything that he possibly could to win this football game. Even when he was banged up heading into overtime, he was able to complete a really nice pass. Unfortunately, because we can't have nice things though, Malik Willis did fumble the snap on 4th down in overtime, which allowed the Bears to get the ball, and ultimately they were able to go down the field and score. But honestly, I'm not blaming Malik Willis for any of that because the Packers, and this wasn't just a Malik Willis problem, they were very inefficient in the red zone once again. They were one of the best teams in the red zone this season heading into that Denver game, and after an abysmal display in Denver, they were 0 for 5 in the red zone today. So just a horrid performance overall by the offense and just not being able to capitalize and score the points that they needed. The Packers, of course, going down the very first drive, and they were moving that ball very well with Jordan Love, but they went for it on 4th down, being aggressive, ultimately not kicking the field goal, which wound up biting them in the ass. But you want Matt LaFleur to be aggressive? He was aggressive, and unfortunately, they just could not get it done. And taking a look at the rest of the offense here, Emmanuel Wilson, 14 carries for 82 yards. The Packers had a total of 192 rushing yards on the day, so did very, very well on the ground. Josh Jacobs, 12 for 36. Again, he was banged up heading into this game. He wound up not seeing the field until that onside kick recovery after he fumbled inside the 5. And again, this just adds to the pile of errors that the Packers had on Saturday night, because the Packers could have at least walked away with a field goal, but fumbling inside the 5, they walked away with 0 points. And yeah, this wound up costing them. Romeo Doubs was the Packers' leading receiver, 5 catches for 84 yards and a touchdown. He had an absolutely incredible night. In a night where Christian Watson was heading into this game and he wasn't 100%, Jaden Reed and Christian Watson wound up colliding on the same play, and they wound up being out for a little bit. Romeo Doubs was their leading receiver. Unfortunately, though, Romeo Doubs made an egregious error on that onside kick recovery. As the ball hit him, he could not recover it cleanly, and ultimately the Bears recovered the onside kick. By the way, this is only the 5th onside kick recovery that has been successful this season. So, yeah. Right off the bat, when we're just talking about the offense, you have 3 major errors. They didn't show up in the red zone, and yet the Packers dominated time of possession and were also winning this game up until the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. Taking a look at the defense, honestly, it was better than what I thought it was going to be. In the first half, they shut out the Chicago Bears, and they allowed 103 yards. Yes, one of those was a turnover on downs in which Chicago was able to move down the field, and then it was a high snap that allowed the Packers to get the ball back. But hey, without Micah Parsons, the Packers were still able to pressure Caleb Williams a pretty damn good amount. There were 22 total pressures from the Packers, and Caleb Williams was pressured on 47.4% of his dropbacks. However, what was the difference maker? Caleb Williams just played really damn well. And so while the Packers were able to get a ton of pressure on Caleb Williams the first time that they played, Micah Parsons not being there made a huge difference. And when you're talking about the defense, Nixon, he had a tough night. He was one-on-one with DJ Moore in overtime that allowed that touchdown. And I just got to give a lot of credit to Caleb Williams and DJ Moore, because that was a phenomenal throw and a phenomenal catch. And I have to imagine that felt pretty good for Caleb Williams, who was intercepted by Keyshawn Nixon the last time that they played. So he was able to get some revenge on our secondary. I mentioned before the Packers had no sacks. Quay Walker was their leading tackler with 14 combined tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. But for some of the good that the Packers did on defense, there was also a bunch of bad stuff. The secondary didn't play their best football. Xavier McKinney, who had a really good night, dropped yet another interception. He had a dropped interception this past Sunday. And Brinson, late in that game, the Packers, they finally get after Caleb Williams. They get a sack. It's 3rd and 20. And this moves the Bears back to their own side of the field. But that sack is completely negated as Brinson had a face mask. So that went, instead of being 4th and 26, knocking them out of field goal range, to a 1st and 10 on Green Bay's 31. The Bears would ultimately kick a field goal, making it a 1-score game. And then, of course, they kicked the onside kick. And speaking of the special teams, besides Romeo Doubs dropping that ball, McManus went a perfect 3 for 3. We didn't even see Dan Whelan, as there was no punts from the Packers this past Saturday. And when you put it all together, it was just sloppy freaking football in a game that the Packers should have won. They were up 10 with 5 minutes and 3 seconds to go. They had a win probability of 99%. And ultimately, they just choked away that game. And I do got to give a lot of credit to Caleb Williams, because he played a really damn good game. Went 19 for 34, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. They went 1 for 2 in the red zone, which again, you can give credit to the Packers defense not allowing them many trips to the red zone. Santos was incredible for the Bears, because it was a very windy night on Saturday, and he was able to drill all of his field goals. Swift went 13 carries for 58 yards. Manungai 9 for 50, also was their second leading receiver, 3 catches for 43 yards. In total, the Bears had 150 rushing yards. DJ Moore was their leading receiver, 5 catches for 97 yards, and of course that touchdown, which was a 46-yard touchdown, which wound up ending the game in overtime. And so, where does this leave the Packers? Well, a few things. One, that was terrible. And it really felt like 2 separate games. One, it felt like the Cleveland Browns game earlier this season, where they were up late in that game and they just choked it all away. And 2, it was a very stark reminder of the NFC Championship game against the Seattle Seahawks, because you had the onside kick, you had the deep throw for a touchdown in overtime, and overall, just a whole lot of pain. So whether you're looking at the offense's inefficiency in the red zone, the fumbles, or whether you're looking at the special team fumbles, or whether you're looking at the defense with inopportune inopportune penalties. This was a complete and total team loss in a game that I think was pretty well coached by Matt LaFleur, especially when Malik Willis was in. Again, that just opened up the ground game and they were able to get over 150 yards on the ground. That's something to be happy about. What you're not happy about is that situationally, here we go again, the Packers had this game well in hand, and whether it's the face mask late or the fumble on the onside kick or the defense just completely and totally crapping the bed at the end, yeah, that was a really rough game for the Packers to lose. This is now the first game that the Packers have lost within the division this season, and this drops them to 9-5-1. And now the Bears, they have complete control over their destiny. The Bears will win the NFC North if they win either their game against the 49ers next week or that Week 18 game against the Lions. If the Packers want to have a shot at the division, they have to win their last two games against the Ravens and the Vikings, and the Bears have to lose out. Also, there is still a possibility that the Lions could win the division. The Lions would have to win out their 3 remaining games. They're playing against Pittsburgh today and Aaron Rodgers. They would need the Bears to lose at San Francisco and the Packers to lose either against the Ravens or the Vikings, and that would give the Lions the division. So they are not out just yet. But when talking about the Packers, they remain at the number 7 seed. The Bears are currently at the 2 seed, and the Packers still have a 78% chance to make the postseason. And so if they're able to win these last 2 games, we'll see what the Bears do. They're going to be making it into the playoffs, but there's a very good shot that they are going to be the 7 seed for the 3rd season in a row, which I know plenty of people are not going to be happy about. And there's a very realistic scenario that if the Bears are able to hold on to the 2 seed, the Packers being the 7 seed, we are going to see this matchup in the wild card round. And again, it was a really fun game. It wasn't fun as a Packers fan in any way, shape, or form, but you got to give some credit to the Bears, especially Caleb Williams. He played really well under pressure. Both his touchdowns came when he was under pressure. And ultimately, this was just a complete meltdown in a time where the Packers already have a ton of injuries heading into this game, but then they also lost their starting quarterback. So hopefully Jordan Love will be good to go for this Saturday. But yeah, this one stings like a whole freaking lot. This is a tough game to lose. That rivalry with Chicago is definitely back, but considering you're up with 5 minutes and 3 seconds to go, you're up by 2 scores, this is definitely a tough loss. So now we'll see if the Packers can rebound, and unfortunately, this is just another situational game that got away from them, and now we'll see if they can at least hold on to that 7 seed, and from there, we'll see if they can make some noise in the postseason. But yeah, last night, I was not having a good time watching this football game. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you feel about this Packers loss? How do you feel about their chances going forward? We got 2 freaking games left. Primetime at home against the Ravens, and then we're on the road against Minnesota. Let's see how this season finishes. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, and a big shout and thank you to all the Patreon and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.